Hello guys, I'm Idris from Buzzing with Wonder. Yesterday we harvested some honey, so we took some super boxes, i.e. honey boxes, off from the hives, and today we're going to be showing you how you go from one of these honey frames, which the bees have made all by themselves. As you can see, it's got some substantial weight to that, and you can see the honey dripping from some of the wax there. So how you go from that to this. So a nice jar. So extracting honey from a frame and putting it into a jar and labeling it. Right, so let's go on ahead and get cracking. So the first step is you get one of these frames from one of these boxes which you've taken off from the hive. You make sure there's no bees on it, use a smoke and a brush, etc. And once you've done that, you're left with a nice clean box full of these frames, which are capped off. And the first step basically is you've got to take off this thin layer of wax which is on the top of the frame. So if I just show you a quick demonstration. So this is just a kitchen knife. So on top of a frame, the bees cap the honey with a very thin layer of wax, and when you remove that thin layer of wax, it literally just starts dripping straight away. So that honey, that honey is starting to drip already. You can actually hear it as well. So that's the first step. So you uncap it, and once you've uncapped the frame, then you put it into something which is called an extractor, and that's this machine here. So this is called an extractor. We use an electric extractor, so we don't have to manually spin it. And you literally, once you've uncapped it, you'll literally just slot the frame in to the extractor like so. Right, and this extractor can hold 3 frames. So once we've done 3 frames, you pop them in, and then you just set it, and it'll start spinning. The extractor will then spin the frame very fast, and all the honey will be forced out the wax and the frame, but it will leave the wax perfectly intact. And then the honey will settle, and then we'll open the tap, which is at the bottom of the extractor, which is just here. And then we'll run it through a sieve into a bucket, and then we'll jar it up from there. That's just a quick summary of what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be going into a lot more detail as we do it. So let's get started with our first frame. So this honey is, as you can see, it's got a very dark looking capping to it. So we've got all our equipment here. I'm going to be using today a special uncapping tool. Most beekeepers will use maybe a sharp knife, which works equally as well. It's just basically just like peeling a potato, and we put that in. We pop that into a bowl of hot boiling water, straight from a kettle, and just sterilizes everything and make sure everything is like nice and clean. So this metal is nice and hot, and then we literally just carefully uncap that top layer of wax from the frame. So that's the first one. I use 2 uncapping tools, so 2 of these. So when one's filled with wax, I use the next one.
Do we uncap both sides, or do we just do one side?
So the first 3 frames we pop in, we uncap both sides, and then afterwards we uncap one side, extract it, and then uncap the next side. Okay. This particular honey is quite thick, so we can actually get away with uncapping both sides. If you uncap both sides and the honey is very runny, and you've still got frames in the extractor, and then you've got frames waiting in the box, a lot of the honey will just drip out and fall on your the board or the mat underneath, and a lot of honey will go to waste. So you kind of want to uncap the frames as you put them into the extractor. But if it's thicker honey, then you can uncap more frames, and it'll take longer for it to drip. If it's runny, you've got to do it as you're putting it in. So that's one frame extracted. You can see how easy that is. So it goes
that's
from that.
That's the cap side, isn't it?
That's the cap side.
I'll show the
Completely dry. You can run your hand through it and no honey. And this is the uncapped side. And if I'm not going to do it, but if I put my hand against that, it would
more
come.
sticky and...
Yeah, it would merge very, very sticky and runny.
So now, do we place that in the extractor?
Yeah, that's it.
Go in?
That'll go in extract. So with this particular frame, I'm going to uncap both sides because it's going to be the first frame that's going into the extractor. So I'm just going to put the cap side down. Now these uncapping tools now kind of gunked up with that top layer of wax. So we just use a knife and we just scrape it off. That's it. And the idea is basically during this whole process that we're trying to waste the least amount of honey. We're trying not to waste like one drop of honey because it takes a bee its entire lifetime to make one drop of honey. So the idea is we don't waste a single drop. So even the bits of honey which are in this glass container, we will leave it out for the bees after we've done the whole harvest, and the bees will clean everything dry literally. So we're not wasting a single drop of honey. Even the extractor machine, after we've finished, we'll leave it out for the bees. Right, so I'm going to do the next sides now. So same again. Scraping the top layer off. And I personally find using these uncapping tools a lot easier than using a normal knife.
Yeah, some people prefer to use like a knife.
Yeah, some beekeepers will use a knife. Some beekeepers will use a special knife which is actually electric, and it heats up the metal, so the metal's nice and hot, so it's easier to uncap. But for me personally, I find the easiest way is to use a tool like this. So now, as you can see, both sides are uncapped and it's now literally dripping honey everywhere. So I'm going to pop this into the extractor. So this will now go into the extractor machine. This particular extractor only holds 3 frames, like I mentioned before. So literally just...
You take that other frame out and uncap it?
Yeah, so this other frame needs uncapping.
Let's get that uncapped.
That needs uncapped. So we've uncapped one. I'm now going to go ahead and uncap 2 more. And once 3 frames are uncapped on both sides, then we'll start the extractor and we'll start it spinning. Right, so we've uncapped the frames, we've uncapped both sides, we've uncapped 3 of them, and we've popped them 3 uncapped frames full of honey into an electric motor extractor. So this is our extractor here. It's a 3-frame extractor. I'm going to lift the lid up now. As you can see, the 3 frames full of honey, not yet extracted, have been placed in. And the extractor will literally just spin the frames round and round, and using
We'll turn it on and show them.
Using centripetal action, the honey will be drawn out of the wax and will settle at the bottom of the extractor machine. So with this particular one, there's a switch, just turn it on, and then there's a dial which just, if I turn it, I can adjust the speed basically. So this is a kind of a low speed, so we spin it at low speed to begin with, and then after a minute or so we'll speeden it up basically, so it'll be a lot faster. We don't want to make it, we don't want to spin it at the top speed to begin with, because otherwise all the wax will just spin out of the frame and the frame will get really badly damaged. So we'll spin it at a slow speed to begin with, and then afterwards we'll speed it up basically.
Can I get an inside look?
Yep. I'm going to speed it up now slightly. Turn the dial. now see it's spinning quite relatively fast. We're going to leave this in the extractor for about a minute, and after a minute you'll see that the honey will literally have been drawn out of the wax, so it'll be completely empty. So you'll see one side still full of the honey, and the side which is facing the side of the extractor, all the honey will be drawn out from it. So I'm just going to speed it up. We'll give it about 30 more seconds before we take it out.
I heard it had something to do with the angle that the thing's made at as well.
From the...
Like the hexagon, it's like at an angle, so that's why it comes out, isn't it? Something to do with that.
Yeah, so the bees make the hexagon shapes, so...
They make it at like a slight angle.
Slight angle, yeah. So the bees make the hexagons and make it into perfect shapes to make it most space efficient, if you like. And then the way the extractor machine works, it just spins it really, really fast. And using centripetal force, which is a kind of physics force, it kind of forces all the honey out from the frame, and it leaves the wax perfectly intact. So the reason why we use these extractors is because it actually takes 8 pounds of weight in terms of honey to make 1 pound in weight in terms of wax. So 8 pounds of honey to make 1 pound of wax. So if we can keep the wax intact, it helps the bees a lot. So we extract the honey from the frames, and then we'll just go on and put the frames back into the hive, and the bees then will just have to refill it full of honey. They won't have to rebuild the wax all over again. After a year or so, after a season, we might put a fresh new frame in, so get the bees to make new wax from scratch, because the old wax probably will be getting a bit old. But if we can get the bees to recycle it and just refill it, it's a lot more efficient. So just going to spin this for 5 or 10 more seconds, and then we'll just take it out and see how much of the honey's been extracted. So if it's runny honey, it should have pretty much all come out. If it's quite thick, it'll still be in the frame. So as you can see, this honey is kind of a medium type thickness. So we've got still quite a bit of honey residue on it, but the majority of it, I'd say probably 80-90% of the honey has been drawn out. So that's the side which...
Much lighter now, wouldn't it?
Yeah, much lighter, half the weight. So that's the side which the extractor's taken all the honey from. The other side is still packed full of honey.
Oh, so do you have to flip them around?
Yeah, so once we've span these frames and all the honey's come out from one side, we then have to... So currently the frame, this side, was facing the outer edge of the extractor. Okay. And then once that side's done, we have to flip it around. So the other side will now be facing the outer edge. So we have to do that basically. And once we've done kind of 2 rounds, these 3 frames will be done, and then we uncap the next 3 and we just repeat the cycle. And all that honey will start to settle at the bottom of the extractor. So you can see quite a bit of wax debris, and the honey's starting to settle at the bottom. And then there's a tap right at the bottom of the extractor, and then the next step is you open that tap and you run it through a sieve once to remove any big chunks of wax, and it just makes the honey a bit more smoother. We only sieve our honey once though, because we like to sell as raw and organic and as natural honey as possible. So we only sieve it once, and it will go through the sieve and settle into a big bucket, and then there's a tap at the bottom of that bucket, and it will go into the jars, but we'll show that later on in more detail. So I'm going to go on ahead and flip that over. Right, so we've harvested the frames, the extractor spun it, all the honey's come out from the frames, and we're just going to take the frames out from the extractor. So they're nice and light, completely clean, as you can see. We're just going to put them back into the box which we took off from the hive. So let's go and do that. So this box now, all the frames, about 6 frames, completely free from honey. Obviously there's honey residue on the frames, so in order not to waste a single drop of honey, we're going to take this box out into my back garden where I've got one of the hives, which is kind of like a personal hive, and we'll leave it out near the hive, and the bees in about 5 or 10 minutes will be all over it and clean it dry. So we'll go and do that now. So we're just leaving the hive next to the, we're leaving the honey box next to the hive, and within about 5 or 10 minutes, the bees will be all over it and they'll clean it dry completely. So not a single drop of honey will go to waste. Right, so whilst we're waiting for the bees to clean up the other box which we've just harvested, we're going to finish off the second box, and yeah, let's get cracking. So we're back outside, checking on the frames which we've put out in the back garden next to this hive. Unfortunately, because it's a very cloudy day, a bit of a stormy day to be honest, mid-August, we haven't actually got a lot of bees on the super. On a normal sunny day, there would be hundreds of bees all over it. At the minute, there's just wasps. So the buzzing insects which you can see, they're all wasps. Like I said, it's mid-August and it's a very cloudy day. I'm going to try see if it works today. It might not because it's a very cloudy day, but I've got honey all over my hands. My hands are very sticky. You don't want to be shaking my hand at the moment, and I'm going to put my very sticky hand near the entrance of the hive. There's about 60,000 bees in this hive currently. You'll never guess that in a million years, but yeah, there's 60,000 bees in there. I'm just going to put my hand near the entrance and see if the bees clock on. So you can see some of the bees are already, literally in 2-3 seconds, they're already going on my hand. Now bees are very gentle beings, insects, creatures, and they're incredibly intelligent. If you treat bees with respect and with love, and you always remain calm around them, then the bees will do the same around you. And quite often when bees are aggressive, it's because the beekeeper's made a mistake, or they've opened up the hive during weather like this, very cloudy weather, or they've used chemicals, or they've made mistakes, or they've squashed or killed bees. But honeybees are just like any other pet or animal, right? If you treat them with love and care and passion, they will do the exact same to you. And as you can see here now, there's maybe about 10 or 15 bees on my hand, and they're just there licking the honey off my hand, and within a few minutes, I would say give it 5 or 10 minutes because it's a bit cloudy weather, my hand will literally be dry clean. But not a single one is bothering me. So if I lift it up, you can actually see, if you look very carefully, the tongue from the bees coming out of the mandibles, as they call it, and just licking all that honey off. But they're absolutely adorable. Not a single one's bothering me. As you can see, I've not got a bee suit on, right next to the hive. They're on my hand, no worries whatsoever. And it's a cloudy day as well. Right guys, we've come back inside. We've left the frames which we've harvested outside. The bees have cleaned my hands, and so all the frames have been harvested. The extractor spun it. So all that honey now has settled at the bottom of the extractor machine, if you look at inside the machine, you can see all the honey at the bottom there, at the bottom of the machine. So all we're going to do now, very simply, is there's a tap here. We're going to open that tap now, and when we open that tap, the honey's going to pour out and it's going to run through this sieve. And all this sieve does, it removes any big chunks of wax or debris from the honey. And we personally at Buzzing at Wonder, we only sieve our honey once to keep the honey as raw and organic and as natural as possible. So that honey now is gushing out the tap, going through the sieve, and give it about 30 seconds or so, the honey will come out from the bottom of the sieve and will go into this bucket here. Now at the bottom of this bucket, there's another tap. So once we've sieved all the honey once from extractor and it's all settled in the bucket after a day or so, we will then open this tap and we'll get nice, pure, raw, organic honey straight from the hive. And we will then literally just jar it all up. And that's how you harvest honey.